You do this job long enough and you start to get a sense for things to come. And the worst thing you can do, especially when dealing with a foreign enemy, is to show them that you are distracted or divided and unable to focus on your own self-protection. Unfortunately, with all the events happening right now, that is specifically what we're showing our foreign adversaries, some within and on our own domestic soil. And then out comes a bulletin. A bulletin that has now put federal, state, and local authorities on high alert. I'll go to frame in what that bulletin states and the events leading up to why it may be a lot more than just some simple words on a piece of paper. That's the story I'll bring you in just a few seconds. Now, there's been several indicators leading up to this story. I covered and touched on this in a prior broadcast. Pete Hegseth and the Pentagon. Putting this out, the press does not run the Pentagon, the people do. The press is no longer allowed to run the halls of a secure facility. Wear a badge and follow the rules, or go home. Department of War implements new guidelines for media access. Here's the policy in a nutshell. Wear a media credential. And don't take out classified information. They're locking down on what information is leaving the Pentagon. Okay, we had an indicator. Then we have the events of Charlie Kirk. Then we have a multitude of events happening immediately thereafter. We have the shooting up of the ABC news station. And here's the criminal complaint, the criminal indictment: possession of a firearm within a school zone, discharge of a firearm within a school zone, interference with the radio communication station. The FBI then taking the suspect into custody. Found in the back of his vehicle was a threat, a note, to do the next scary thing, to be more specific. In the search of a suspect's car, turned up an anti-Trump book. And authorities also found a handwritten note that said, "For hiding Epstein and ignoring red flags." The note mentioned FBI Director Kash Patel, FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino, and Attorney General Pam Bondi, saying they were next. And if you're like me, you're watching all the warning signs. We're not seeing the temperature being brought down. We're seeing it escalate up. I was shocked, and not shocked, to see Kamala Harris suddenly coming back out again. Now, is this just by coincidence because she's selling books? Maybe. But listen to the rhetoric for a moment.
Capitalism thrives in a democracy. And right now we are dealing with, as I called him at my speech on the ellipse, a tyrant. We used to compare the strength of our democracy to communist dictators. That's what we're dealing with right now, Donald Trump.
So much for cooling down the rhetoric, huh, Democrats? Is that your next heir apparent? Are you going to try her again, or are you just throwing her out there to go ahead and continue to incite the rhetoric and wondering if we have another event, why there was such a response, but you're the ones asking Trump to cool down the rhetoric? Irresponsible? That would be an understatement. Of course, Kamala Harris is now backing Zohran Mamdani, so I guess we should expect nothing less. But this isn't even close to the bulletin that just came out. Just precursors as to why it's so significant. Because if we can't get our own, well, I almost cursed, crap together, then, man, we leave ourselves exposed, don't we? Our enemy's watching what we're doing. They're waiting for an opportunity. And we are giving them a golden opportunity right now because we're distracted amongst our own internal battles. And sometimes when that happens, we're not keeping our eye on a bigger enemy. And that bulletin goes to tell you specifically who it is. And it's far bigger than even Antifa. Now, as I do every day, and there's a necessity to do this, it keeps the channel growing, so thank you for your patience. I hope, as I ask you every day, to help me assure the algorithm knows this news matters to you. You'll continue to make sure your bell is checked to all for all the new subscribers that we're gaining daily. Welcome home. Make sure you're subscribed, and you too, make sure your bell is checked to all so you're actually alerted to my upcoming broadcasts. If you want a secondary alert, you can always go to justiceanight.com, subscribe to my platform there, and I'll send you a personal bulletin every day when a broadcast goes up. Not only a bulletin from my public platforms, but from our private platform, which is our news channel. Lisa Haven, that beautiful woman on the screen right there, and mine. We created it for you. We'll hope you go there today. As you know, I continue this podcast on because something strange happened yesterday. All about this rhetoric, where someone felt it was appropriate to act out the assassination of Elon Musk and President Trump on stage. I'm going to cover that on our private platform because to adhere to the rules and regulations on public platforms is too graphic to show here. So I hope you'll join me at Restricted Republic, and I will unfortunately play you what was done live on stage. Also want to take a moment to thank again Chapter for helping me to bring you this video. If you haven't given them a call yet, this is an amazing company. It's a free phone call, mind you, 805-619-5011 for any of you looking for Medicare, to reassess your plan, or to help someone else who needs Medicare. They are licensed Medicare professionals. The most amazing part about them is the average person who calls them saves $1,100. I'll even make it a little bit better. In under 20 minutes or less, you can find out if you can save money. Here's the best part about it. A lot of people will write in the comments, "Hey, Justice, I have the best plan." Maybe you do. By making a free phone call, they may tell you you have the best plan, and you leave your day feeling amazing about yourself. Or you make that free phone call to 805-619-5011, and you find out you don't have the best plan. Most people in under 20 minutes or less, man, they're saving money. And guess what? You'll feel amazing about yourself. This company is incredible. Love you to give them a call. They know how to get through all the red tape and bureaucracy. They know how to explore all the options available in your area, and there's a multitude. This is a tough system to get through. That is what they are trained to do. That is what their company is all about. And I am so happy that I was able to find them, and they were able to help me bring you this video. And the best part is it's 100% free, and you're talking to a live person simply by calling 805-619-5011. It's been the most amazing service to my audience, and I invite you to call them today. But now let's get back to this video. So Donald Trump did as he promised. He designated Antifa a terrorist organization, but people are not quite satisfied yet. Second part of this podcast, I'm going to go into something else they're requesting, and I'm not even sure myself if I fully support it, because sometimes in times of tragedy, we push the envelope a little bit too far. And we too have had the envelope pushed too far on us, so I will protect both sides of the aisle when I think someone is going too far. I look after the rights of everyone. It's why we try to keep a moderated, realistic style here. I'm not here to just talk to one side of the aisle and bring in people through incendiary commentary. That doesn't work, and it doesn't serve towards God, country, Constitution, and family, which is what we represent here. Unlike Jimmy Kimmel, who is now set for a return to ABC after backlash. Not much to say there, except to point out that he won't apologize for the comments he made, and that is all the focus that he deserves. But in other news about the temperature in the country continuing to rise, did you see what Keith Olbermann wrote about Scott Jennings? You're next, MFer, but keep mugging to the camera. He felt he should delete those tweets after posting them, but it was too late because Scott Jennings captured it and wrote to the FBI. You see, one side of the aisle isn't cooling off. They don't realize the repercussions for their actions, and that is extremely unfortunate because obviously they're not seeing or reading the same bulletins we are. They're not paying attention to what's happening, and they frankly don't seem to care. Vernon Hell Sinclair alongside Charlie Kirk, I guess sensitivity is long sins lost in this country, and I'll have a closing monologue to frame that in for you. But no, they'd rather focus on further divide. They'd rather focus on the attacks of going after Tom Homan, but thankfully, Caroline Leavitt tried to set the record straight.
The President asked the Justice Department to close the case, and does Homan have to return the $50,000?
Well, Mr. Homan never took the $50,000 that you're referring to, so you should get your facts straight, number one. Number two, this was another example of the weaponization of the Biden Department of Justice against one of President Trump's strongest and most vocal supporters in the midst of a presidential campaign. You had FBI agents going undercover to try and entrap one of the president's top allies and supporters, someone who they knew very well would be taking a government position months later. Mr. Homan did absolutely nothing wrong, and even the President's Department of Justice, even Kash Patel's FBI, looked into this just to make sure. They had a number of different prosecutors and FBI agents who looked into this. They found zero evidence of illegal activity or...
So we'll stop it there. Because to me, there's something slightly more important to focus on, because Tom Homan's accomplishments, of course, the administration looking after an administration official will generally find no wrongdoing. But could it be something else? Why did it continue to attack Tom Homan? Obviously, they disagree with every direction he's heading, everything he's doing. Nearly 25,000 missing illegal immigrant children have been found, according to Tom Homan. It's a pretty damn good statistic, huh? But no, does the mainstream media point that statistic out? No. They go after some old, archaic story and publicize it simply again to divide a nation rather than reinforce the efforts of our domestic security, which ties into the main story. Nothing is ever about our domestic security. No, we have talking heads out there fuming over the Christian message at Charlie Kirk's memorial, saying that Scripture demands submission. What we saw in the arena was not simply faith-finding public expression, it was religious nationalism on full display. You see, all he's doing, in my opinion, is simply trying to get people to tune into a useless podcast. I cannot stand Don Lemon in any way, shape, or form, and he was called out for it. I think America would rather submit to Christ than submit to whatever the left's religion is. Or Don Lemon calls Scripture demanding submission, but he has no clue what truth and freedom actually is. He looks at joy, faith, and unity and sees a threat because misery can't comprehend peace. And peace is what we all desire at the end of the day, isn't it? Peace and unity, security of the great Republic of the United States of America. And maybe all of these folks should pay attention to what is the threat that wants to destroy us, no matter what party we are. You see, they don't care. They just view us as the enemy. Democrat, independent, Republican. They don't care. The Joint Counterterrorism Assessment Team. I touched on this over the weekend, but I want to dig in just slightly deeper. Because when you have events occurring that are happening right now all around us, our assets are spread rather thin. Because we're dealing with our own problems, our own inner arguments. And unfortunately, our elected representatives are doing nothing to stop it. And that is a gross abuse of power. We have elected them for only very limited scope of work for the most part. And one of the primary scopes of work for them is to keep the homeland secure. And they've failed at that time and time again, and we tend to forget that. Now they focus on their own talking points and sound bites. Just listen to Jasmine Crockett and tell me if she's doing anything that she was actually elected to do. Trust me, I can give you plenty of Republicans also. So this bulletin comes out. Al-Qaeda's recent calls to conduct attacks in the U.S. highlights its enduring threat to public safety. New bulletin just being put out. I don't have to read the whole thing to you. I can read 2 sections. I'll go full screen so you can read with me. In mid-July 2025, AQAP released the 10th edition of its English Language Inspire Guide, AQAP. That is Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, just so you know where we're coming from here. The second issue within a month, celebrating recent attacks in the U.S. and calling on its supporters in the homeland to conduct attacks using simple attack methods such as firearms, explosives, knives, vehicle ramming, or Molotov cocktails, but just hold for it. This is not the paramount concern. It's a concern. The publication highlighted that proper targets were individuals or organizations that support Israel, as well as law enforcement and the government. Almost certainly a reference that includes the United States government, and that large protest or civil disturbances could be good opportunities to commit an act of terrorism. Let me just reread that to you, shall I? And that large protests or civil disturbances could be good opportunities to commit acts of terrorism. Well, we're creating a whole lot of civil disturbances right now, aren't we? See, all these protesters also protesting ICE, and all these big cities are creating civil disturbances, and our enemies watching. Congratulations, folks. You're opening the door. Y'all pay attention to anything in life? Nah, I know you don't. All you care about is getting on camera, now don't you? In June, AQAP leader, I don't care about their name, released a video titled Inciting the Believers, calling for attacks against the U.S. President, Vice President, Secretaries of Defense and State, members of Congress, their families, and at least one private U.S. citizen. In his speech, Atif urged revenge. The reciprocity is legitimate, and said there was no distinction between civilian and military targets. You see, it affects all, not Democrat or Republican, not military or civilian. It's all. In June, AQAP published the 9th edition of its Inspire Guide, A Message Beyond Bullets, Attack on the Jewish Capitol Museum in Washington, D.C. The article focused on inciting lone actor attacks against the U.S. and called for Muslims in America to take action, likely an attempt to capitalize on the killing of 2 Israeli embassy employees in front of the Jewish Capitol Museum in May. But let's make it even worse, shall we? Many of the suggested target themes in recent Al-Qaeda threats are consistent with the group's post-9/11 attack plots in the homeland, which focus, as you well know, on aviation, symbolic, and economic targets, U.S. military or government employees and facilities, and the U.S. public. And they continue to revisit these themes. Just go down into it and they give you a list of how they have redone the same things over and over. And they realize right now in the great Republic of the United States of America, we are a divided nation driven by a lot of distractions right now, created by a lot of folks that just want to argue with one another. And now this bulletin comes out. Pentagon locks down on information. Do you think maybe they have a few more indicators than they're letting on and why they're tripping the alert to federal, state, and local law enforcement? And maybe both sides of the aisle should shut their goddarn mouths for a second and maybe start cooperating on something a little bit more important, like the security and sanctity of the great Republic of the United States of America. I'm just asking for all my friends who are watching this video. You see, we're we the people, and I know you disrespect us. I know you can care less about us. I know we're just the folks that voted you in, and I know we're just the folks that give you all our hard-earned dollars in taxes. And I know that doesn't mean a whole lot to you, and that's really unfortunate. I know you lost sight of that a long, long time ago. But folks, this is the reality of what we're facing. Because we want to divide one another, don't we? Continually divide. As I continue this, the divide's not stopping. Because I can't even show you what they did here on stage. I had to freeze it because it's that grotesque. That says Doge on the shirt, mind you. Or what's even further grotesque is what happened seconds after I freeze framed this shot with obvious representation of President Trump live on stage. This is what's deemed as acceptable in this modern society. It's not normal. It's sick, it's twisted, it's distorted. But my job here is unfortunately to report on it. Fortunately, to inform you. Unfortunately, to present these images that are so resoundingly and readily available. It's sad, isn't it? So, before I continue, and we'll do this kind of on the transition point now. I don't want to get that image off before I do. This will be my closing. James Howard Kunzler. I follow him a lot. He's an amazing author. I'm going to recap something he wrote here. American 2025. Where a simple conversation with a family member, as you all know, can collapse faster than a Biden press conference. Kunzler laid out a plan. His plan. It's not about policy debates. It's not about finding middle ground. It's about refusal, it seems, to even listen. Try to talk about free speech, secure borders, women's sports, or medical freedom, and suddenly you're a far-right extremist. Funny how yesterday's common sense is today's hate speech. What Kunzler captured in this article is the deeper sickness. We've traded dialogue for cancellation, reason for rhetoric, friendship for factional loyalty. The same people who once stood against war, censorship, and secret government ops are now demanding all three. It's like the old hippies grew up and decided to cosplay at the very institutions they once despised. But here's the truth. The breakdown of communication isn't just about politics. It's about sanity. It's about a culture so addicted to outrage and anger and so wired into tech-fueled mass formation that it's literally forgotten how to talk and communicate. That's why families fracture. That's why friendships collapse. That's why our so-called leaders can't even agree on the definition of a basic reality, and why they can't even figure out how to protect us. So Kunzler offered a warning wrapped in hope, thankfully. The chaos, the noise, the rising babble. It can't last forever. There's a breaking point. And when it comes, America will get tired of being crazy. They'll reconsider and rediscover conversation. Maybe even rediscover truth. The question is, how much damage do we let pile up before that reset happens? Kirk allowed for conversation. Charlie worked to get people simply to talk. He saw this, he knew this. Right now we're standing on the fault line between what is absurdity and collapse. One side's calling for Western civilization to be torn down in the name of progress. The other side's trying to hold the line, even as the system itself starts cracking underneath its own weight. And in the middle, you, me, and millions of other Americans. Just trying to talk, only to be told that listening is no longer an option. But his take. History has a way of humbling the arrogant. The louder the noise gets, the more desperate the censorship. The more obvious it becomes the truth is fighting its way back. And when it does, when America and Americans finally get sick of being insane, the conversations we thought were lost forever may just begin again. So I'll leave you with this. And Howard leaves you with this. You can silence a voice, you can cancel a friendship, you can even fracture a family. But you can't erase reality. Eventually, reality comes knocking. And when it does, the people who refuse to listen may finally have no choice, but to do exactly that. And that is what we must all pray and hope for as I continue on now. I hope you'll join me over at restrictedrepublic.com as I try to keep a more moderated tone at the end. Give you some message of hope, and as Howard Kunzler gave you a message of hope. I love you all. Until next time, Godspeed and God bless. Justice Knight, signing out.